people underestimate how much they can learn from other people, but it requires, I think, some things. It requires certain kind of quality in yourself to be able to make the most of it. Firstly, you have to be, I'm going to blurt it out. You probably can add to this, so the question is, what characteristics do you need to have in order to make the most of this great opportunity of interpersonal interaction? Okay, because that's the question. Because if you look at it, to me, it's by far the most easiest way of getting the maximum growth in you, because we actually relate to other human beings far more deeply than a book or anything that we may be trying to do. So if you can set up kind of a good interaction with people, that can be just amazing. And there are people who have done amazing things all around us. I live in New York, you live in New York, right? I mean, there are just incredible people around us. Okay, but people don't interact enough, I think. I think it's a waste. Okay, I keep feeling it's a waste. I certainly know that from these meetups. Like, we did a meetup on Aborigines. Maritza was doing a meetup. Somebody showed up from Australia.
Wow.
Who interacted with Aborigines all the time. Okay, we did this meetup on Dante. This Italian lady showed up whom I said, can you please read Italian? I said, I don't need to read, I can recite Dante. Wow. But what that does is so that upside of what other people have to offer you is so large. So I will put this question for anybody. I'll start with you, and you can take as much time as you want. And then if anybody wants to add, so I'll ask it as a question. Firstly, I'm saying it's a huge opportunity, and I think all of us are agreed on that. So of what you can learn from this, what kind of attitude do you need to have in order to make the most of this opportunity?
I think you need to disarm yourself sometimes to get close to people. Mm-hmm. And you need to approach people without an agenda. And I'm not saying sometimes an agenda is a good thing if you have something good that you want to work on, but we're not here as business associates. We're not here trying to accomplish anything but share knowledge and kind of get each other to think. So I personally immediately turn off when I sense an agenda other than somebody trying to help me. So in terms of an interpersonal skill, I tend to shy away and clam up and close down if I think the person that I'm interacting with has an agenda other than what we're there supposed to be doing. 52 Living Ideas, for me, has done the complete opposite. I lost any apprehension when you personally put your hands up at a meeting and said, I do not know this book, talking about the Tao Te Ching. So for you to do that, you're being vulnerable and you're being honest. So I think the first thing, I don't know if disarming is the right word, but I think just clear yourself to the point where be honest in what it is you want from the other person. Mm-hmm. That's number one. The other thing is you have to do it a lot. So again, the reason I had to drive a taxi and work in a deli at such a young age came from trauma. But the fact is that I did it for many years, gave me an opportunity. I mean, how many interactions? It's innumerable. I can't count. But you have to do it a lot, even if you're uncomfortable, to just have conversations with people. And the richest ones I find are some of the ones you least expect. As a matter of fact, you even said it yourself. You've met people on the subway or on the street that you just, but that happens by putting yourself out there and starting the conversation in a disarmed way. That's probably all I could add to it. And it's essentially all that or the only way I learn. And back to Ambika's point, I also can't read a legal contract. As fascinating as I find computer science in terms of what I believe it can do, and AI, I could never read or study computer science because I didn't feel emotion from it. Interesting stuff. It's fascinating.
Wonderful. Next up is Joe, Madeline, and Vanessa. Joe, what do you think?
I mean, I really think this is really interesting, and how we get the most out of like
Joe, you are very
interpersonal
good at
connection.
this, by the way.
Thank you, thank you. You know why? It's because I'm from New Jersey. No, but that's an insight. We're very good at interpersonal skills in this side of the state.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, but I think the most important thing is that you and Michael alluded to it, is that there's a certain level of sincerity with no agenda, but you always have a certain value system for listening, and so you're actually listening intently to obtain some, let's just say, wisdom of some sort, but you're only listening for that. And I think that that's the best way to get better at interpersonal connections. The other is, Michael also mentioned it, is that it's getting outside your comfort zone. And another great example that we had, and I'm so happy that Michael shared his story today, because actually it reminded me of my grandfather, who he lost his father at 10 years old and had to take over the house, and this is 100 years ago, but it helped him immensely in a lot of different ways to see things. But the example that Michael gave with working at a deli or working in a taxi cab and getting those interpersonal connections. Another example was Roger, who also presents here so beautifully on Thursday nights. And he said, I became a bartender because I couldn't talk to anybody.
Mhm.
And he said, when you're a bartender, you have to talk to people. So getting outside of your comfort zone is another way of really developing your interpersonal skills, because you can develop empathy in that process, because you realize how hard it is to get outside of yourself. And so once you become more empathetic, you also become a better listener. And so that, I think it's a process of really just being open and really challenging yourself in a number of different ways. And I think that's how you can obtain so much information from so many people, and then you genuinely listen to them. I mean, I think that's a principle that you have to have as well.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's all.
Excellent. Thank you, Joe. It was wonderful. Madeline.
Yeah, I'm with Michael on this one. This is one of the best things going. 52 Living Ideas, and has been certainly the bright spot in the pandemic for many of us. I think that part of it is that since it is idea oriented, it's very suitable for Meetup and for the online format. Works pretty well, and I think that also it attracts a large number. I'd say probably pretty much everyone in 52 Living Ideas would be what Jung would call an intuitive type, who are really burning to discuss abstractions and mental representations of the world, and how different types of mental representational systems map onto each other. And that is a very difficult thing to stumble across in real life unless you are taking a class or working in a specific kind of company. And so I find that, often sometimes the most I'll talk in an entire week will be at one of these meetup groups, because it's the only interesting conversation I'm probably going to have. I have discovered, speaking as an INTP who had to apply myself to getting social skills early in life, was that people, first of all, are just looking to see, is this person sane, or are they going to turn to me and say, I bit off my big toe, want to see? So there's going to be some basic level of mammalian interaction of just sort of ascertaining that this person can hold, a fundamental conversation. And then after that, it can get dull so quickly that I will often just sort of throw things in, like to a conversation about the weather. I'll just say to someone, yeah, it's raining, but sometimes I think, okay, we're standing underneath a big cloud system as if we were looking at the earth from the outside and there were all these clouds swirling overhead. That's all that's going on above us. It's not personal. And I just see how they respond if they're interested in picking up on things. But here in these groups, people are always interested in these things. It's fantastic.
Thank you, Madeline. And it's wonderful that you talk here. I think you add a lot. I think that's what it is. It's like, I mean, the way I think about it is like, this is a third place. My meetups have always been like the third place. Like, you know, Starbucks is the idea of not workplace, not family, but a third place. So it's a place where people share values of exploring things about the world, about themselves, about ideas. And that's the values that bring it together. There is no, so it is a very different kind of a place because it is based on these values. And people who really like it are people who value those things. And for them, it is like, it's fantastic. It's just like for me. And I am tremendously grateful because all the people who show up, each of them adds things to it. I have just enough structure to make sure that everybody gets, full 2 minutes living through every 2 minutes that they spend. Not 1 minute. 1 minute, I give a little bit of leeway for people to speak, but 2 minutes, I want to make sure. So it's very highly concentrated too. And that's a very difficult dance to kind of pull off. So that's the hardest thing. But the payoff is just incredible. And thank you, Madeline, really appreciate that. Vanessa, how do you make the most of the opportunity for that you have through interpersonal learning?
Well, sometimes I don't explain directly, but I think I'm gonna like compare it to music, like especially classical music, like maybe Beethoven, Bach. Can you imagine listening to a symphony? Usually they're movements. If you didn't have the flutes and the piccolos where it's nice and soft, or when they come in full throttle without the timpani. And sometimes you want that solo instrument. Can you imagine play the bumblebee if you've got trumpets there? Play the bumblebee, I think that's basically all strings. So sometimes maybe you just want one for that piece of music. But like you do have the variety and you can appreciate it. And like there's different forms, maybe people like the rock and roll, but usually each instrument, plays its own part. It may be minuscule. You think, oh my gosh, we don't need piccolos, or we don't need the sax, or we don't need the cello in there or the bass, but when you're listening to it, it's like, why, something's missing. I mean, I had this since I was a kid, date myself. I got to see Ormandy conduct. I felt so bad. I thought I was going to have a heart attack at the end of Muti at pre-Kimmel Center. So like, I remember, that's kind of ingrained in me. You experience it as a young kid. So like, you can relate and think, my gosh, or, if you take the piano out. So it's like, if you hear it, even if you know little about it, you feel, wait, something's not quite right. They need something else in here. Like I'm sure, Beethoven didn't just spend the weekend, he probably spent maybe months on a particular symphony or the movement. And even, am I going to have them coming soft? Or am I going to pick up the pace? So
wonderful. Thank you, Vanessa. Next up is Jean. Jean, you are on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, so yeah, this is actually the best thing happened during COVID, I think. I used to ask people, if you can choose any time in the past and the future, which area you want to live, and I like to live in Paris, Renaissance Day. They have saloon, they have different writers, philosophers, ever get together, talking about different things. And I also think as architect, the Starbucks have this great idea about having this communal place. Unfortunately, nobody talks to each other. Everybody look at their computer. So, and in Paris, they used to have this place, all the writers, and that will generate ideas. Modern architecture movement start with these clubs. I think it's very fortunate we have you start this group. And we gather all these people who are interested in this subject, because most people around me are not interested, unfortunately. So it's such a rare treasure I think we have here. And when I travel, you know, I was like, the one thing I miss is I need to get back to the meeting. I really enjoy my travel, but that's something I really miss. So I really appreciate your organization.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Jean. And what happens is that, you know, people like Joe, you, Madeline, because you keep coming back, there is a conversation, a very deep conversation that develops between in the group. And because what that does is that it keeps on adding this kind of building up the common knowledge, whether when we read, you know, Dao De Jing together, when we read Jordan Peterson together, look at Jung together, all of that terminology, all of those concepts actually can be used to discuss the next thing we are discussing. And that produces something which is very deep and very rare. I mean, people do get this through with few friends. You know, few really good friends will do that, but this is like expanding that in a very deep way. So, and you can have a conversation with people whom you have just met at that level. And I think that's what is there. And kind of answering that question for me, I think partly you need humility. You need to kind of say, look, this is what I am. This is what I can do. And you also need gratefulness. You know, you need to say, look, world has produced some amazing things. There are some great people out there. And let me learn from them. So you kind of have to, at the same time, you have to be kind of saying, look, these are my strengths. So let me use the strengths. This is what I can do. Let me do that. So you have to be kind of realistic, both about your strengths and your weaknesses, and kind of appreciate, you know, appreciate what people have to offer. Madeline.
Yes, I think also what going with what Gung and you were just saying, what is very unusual about it is that it combines the intellectual with the feeling aspects, and that's what gives it so much depth. Even for those of us whose strongest feelings can be about ideas, there's still feelings, and so that has been another really good thing. Also, Shrikant, I thought it was brilliant of you this winter, when all of us were going crazy and rambling on at great length, to have everyone start writing things down and coming up with condensed questions. It was a terrific solution, and it curbed my personal tendency, which is to think aloud for 3 minutes and then arrive at a conclusion. So I thought that was a really great tactic to take.
Yes, and you are INTP, so this is I expect that of you. So I really appreciate it when you curb it, because what happens is that from INTP perspective, it's the most natural thing, but for a whole bunch of other people, it's just too much to take in. But at the same time, you're talking about something really deep, and you're making a really fundamental point, and the externalization of kind of writing really helps in a big way. All right, folks. So Mike, thank you so much. I mean, this was just a great, fantastic discussion.
And a blast. Thank you.
And I think you know what you want to do. I think it fits really beautifully on the Wednesdays. So either we can do this on Comprehensivist Wednesdays, or if you want to do just before the Comprehensivist Wednesdays. So I think Wednesdays would be a perfect time for what you're doing. Ambika, you had Ambika and Karina. Ambika, you're on mute.
I just want to say this is such an amazing process. I think schools and colleges need it so desperately because they are dead and heavy.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, they are dead, and that's what we have to do. We have to basically supplant them. You have to supplant them, you know, because I seriously think that, you know, like, for example, I want to learn about semiotics. I have Brian Kemple coming this Sunday. He's the student of John Dealey, who is the most prominent person to contribute. He's written the maximum number of books. He's moved the thing forward. This guy is the only person who got PhD under him, knows the thing really, really deeply. And he's just coming and talking to us about that. And he's very excited about doing that.
What comes up is play and polymathy in education.
Great. One is that. The second thing is that there is a lot of things wrong with the education. I mean, the entire idea of people sitting down saying, okay, this is the course, this is the professor, so I have to listen to the professor, this is the book that I have to read on this. All of those things are wrong. It's basically word that you're trying to understand. And so again, this is a peer group. People are of every age, of every level of knowledge, every point of view, and all of that you are encountering in the process of learning. That's the right human environment for learning. So yeah, absolutely.
You're going to start learning communities in schools and let them just mushroom out. So that's what the kids can, students can do. I tried, it didn't work, but we need more voices.
No, it has to be done. The thing is that you need innovation at the level of structure for those things to happen. Next up is Corina. Corina, go ahead.
Hi. Yeah, I just wanted to express my gratitude for this space and just this is, I guess I always knew this was like a cool meetup, but yeah, I appreciate everyone's sort of articulation of like how profound it is that to have a space like this that offers people the opportunity to develop intellectually and for me, when that can be sort of difficult and sort of juggling it with my own feelings and how to put things into words and whether or not I can sort of offer something of value to the group, etc. Just the experience of being like in relationship with all of that and like being welcome here is like really special. So I just really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Corina. The thing is that the focus here is about learning. All of us are explorers. All of us are trying to learn. And it really doesn't matter what level we are on any particular thing. I may know some things, you may know some things much better. And I think if we are open to just learning, I think all of us benefit from it. So I think that's the ethos of the group. And I think that's very powerful. That's very powerful. All right, folks. So thank you very much. Always grateful. See you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Good night. Good night.